On this episode of the Turnbuckle, we get some more details about the Sammy Guevara and Andrade incident. Bandito signs a full-time contract with AEW. Tony Khan gives, he had an interview with Ariel Helwani, and we're going to talk about that. And Seth Rollins actually texted Daniel Cormier about the Extreme Rules gig. Folks, it's time to hit a best moonsault ever into some wrestling news because it's time for the Turnbuckle. On Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez, hold on, let me adjust the microphone. Everything they heard in the wake of Guevara and Andrade's backstage skirmish Wednesday that resulted in the latter being sent home. So one of them got sent home. Okay. I don't know why I heard that both got sent home. Following their back and forth on Twitter this week, after an Andrade interview where he said he had an issue with Guevara, Meltzer said both men were talked to Tuesday and were told no fighting or else both would be sent home. In Andrade's case, he was told he would not be fired if he got into a fight. Both agreed and said there would be no issues. Okay? Don't touch each other. What you're talking about? Meltzer said he got 5 different accounts of what happened, 3 of which were identical, with a 4th pretty close to the other 3. The consistent story is that Guevara did not throw any punches or fight back even after Andrade punched him, possibly a sucker punch, according to what Meltzer and Alvarez heard. One account had Andrade spinning Guevara around, Guevara then pushing him, and Andrade pushing him. Had Andrade spinning Guevara around, and then Guevara, okay, all right. Meltzer said he had heard Andrade was waiting in a hallway for Guevara and got 2 punches in before it was broken up. He noted that despite the punches, Guevara didn't have any marks on him for his main event match on Wednesday's Dynamite. While Andrade's side is what was originally reported by TMZ, both Meltzer and Alvarez noted that if Guevara threw the first punch and had indeed fought Guevara, he wouldn't have worked the main event. Okay, that confused me a little bit. With Chris Jericho against Garcia and Danielson. Andrade was sent home and there was no word on what AEW plans to do with him now. It was noted that he is under contract for several more years and there's speculation he would like to return to WWE. Part of the reason for his behavior this week. Hey, man. Oh, he gavolt. Okay, so based off what I'm reading, it's more so Andrade's fault, to be honest with you. You could argue that Sammy didn't need to go down that hallway. You could argue that Sammy could have seen okay. If I'm Sammy, I'm going to go up to him, but I'm going to stay away from him. I'm not, because obviously he's going to be like turned up. He's going to be in a mood. And I don't want to get sent home. And you're a dickhead, but there's no point in getting you sent home because then I just look like an idiot. I just look like an asshole. So I'm going to talk to you from a distance like, hey, can we just squash this? Is this done? Can we cool? But that's me. To be fair, Sammy was the one who started it. To be fair, let's be honest here. Sammy was the one who started it. Because Andrade was like, look, man, Sammy said some shit, and if that's how it's going to be, then that's how it's going to be. That's pretty much what he said. And then they literally went to each other and said, are we cool? And he said yes. And then Sammy went on Twitter and was like, hey, fuck you. And then Andrade was like, all right, well then, fuck you then. So it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street, all right? Sammy didn't have to say all that shit on Twitter. And Andrade didn't have to say all that. Andrade didn't have to say all the stuff back, and he didn't have to hit him. If the accounts are correct, Andrade, man, you can't be sucker punching people, man. That's not how it goes. Now, I know some of you are like, oh, street rules. No, man, there's honor. Okay, all right. You know what? I don't even know what I'm talking about. The point is, you don't sucker punch someone. That's a bitch move. I'm just gonna go ahead and say you're a bitch if you sucker punch somebody. If you specifically wait for someone's guard to be down or they're not even looking at you, and then you throw a punch, you're a pussy. I'm just being honest. You can't do that. That's just not how it goes. Listen, they both knew that they shouldn't have done that. They both knew that. They knew the risks. And you could argue that Andrade did that so he could get fired. And if that's the case, Andrade, you're more of an asshole than Sammy is at this point. Because you're just doing all the wrong things to get fired. That's not what you're supposed to be doing, man. So, does he need to get fired? No, he doesn't need to get fired. This isn't enough to fire somebody over. This is enough for someone to go, hey, get out, cool off, and you come back when you feel like you're ready. All right? Right now, he's being sent to the naughty step. And he's not getting off for at least another 2 hours, all right? I'm keeping him right there, all right? Because, yeesh. So yeah, Sammy, he didn't throw a punch. you obviously couldn't see any markings. They had the weird, choice to have him win. If you heard throughout the match, in the main event, they were still chanting, "You still suck." So I don't know if that was like a mixture of like, "Oh, you talk shit to Andrade," or a mixture of like, "Yeah, we still don't like you, like fuck you." I don't know. You could argue it was both, but at the same time, a lot of people were like, "Well, yeah, Sammy win." And also, I completely forgot it was the 3-year anniversary. I completely forgot. I mean, I feel like you would have had more people on there. I feel like you would have had Kenny and the Young Bucks on there if they weren't suspended. I feel as though that more than likely would have been the main event for this match. But because of everything that's going on, they had to like switch a couple things around. So, yeah, man. I mean, all I can say is that hopefully now this is done. I don't see this going anywhere. I don't see this going any farther. I think that was it. That was the climax. Andrade punched him. Sammy let himself get punched because he knew what he was doing. Now, some people say that Sammy was saying something, and also some people were saying that Sammy shoved Andrade. From what I can, because they said it was like 4 or 5 people said something, but like 3 out of the 5 or 4 out of the 5 accounts said the same thing, you know. So it sounds like Andrade was the one who kind of like dropped the ball on this. So look, hopefully this is done and we don't have to talk about it anymore. Next, we're going to talk about Bandito and how he signs a full-time contract with AEW. After being offered a contract immediately following his promotional debut last Wednesday, Bandito has signed his full-time AEW contract. Fightful first reported the news Wednesday, and Dave Meltzer confirmed earlier this evening. The length of the deal and specific details on his ability to work outside AEW are unknown. The 27-year-old challenged Ring of Honor champion Chris Jericho in last Wednesday's main event, eventually falling in defeat. He fell and then got defeated. That tickled me for some reason. I don't know why. That really came from me. I don't know why. Fightful had previously reported that Bandito was unable to get his gear on time due to the match being made on short notice, but was professional and positive backstage in dealing with it. He sucker punched his gear. His gear sucker punched him, and then his gear had to go home early. And then he had to find some new gear. No. Listen, man. Wasn't I just complaining about assigning all these new guys, and you still got people on the roster who are not being shined, you know? Is he a talented wrestler? Yes, he is. That goes without saying. That's not my point. My point is that you're bloating the roster even more, because now what is he gonna do? Okay, all right, no. Yeah. Just because he's on the roster, just because he's signed doesn't mean that he has to like wrestle every week. Okay, right, but at the same time, it just feels like, I don't know, you know what, I'm reading too much into it. I mean, to say, oh, I'm glad he signed, well, I mean, it's not like he was fucking living off of paint chips. I'm sure he was fine. I'm sure he could find another fucking promotion. I'm sure he could fucking cartwheel to fucking CMLL and they take him, or they'd go to Impact or something, or well, I mean, I don't know about it. Because then you got to think about their visas and shit. You got to think about their traveling and all that, you know? Because look, hold on, what did it say? Like, the length of the deal and specific details on his ability to work outside of AEW are unknown. See? So, I mean, great, it's signed, but was he really, like, in need of being with AEW? Not really. He could have found somewhere else to be. So, is this a good thing? I mean, if you're Bandito, sure. Yeah, you get more, you get another contract. I'm sure you got money for it, right? So it's not really a bad thing. But, I mean, in the great scheme of things, yeah, you know, sure, great, sure, fine. Just, I don't know, as long as he doesn't stop wrestling or gets injured, you know, then great. Not much else I can say about it. Next, we're going to be talking about Tony Khan and how WWE is likely to have a similar free agent profile as AEW does. In an hour-long interview with Ariel Helwani that dropped after Wednesday's AEW Dynamite, Tony Khan said that WWE is more likely to look at similar free agents as they do because of the regime change. After talking about his thoughts about WWE and their improvements since Vince McMahon resigned, Khan dropped in a line about how there will be, quote, probably a bit more similarity between the companies in what we are looking for in the profile of a free agent. It's probably going to start being a thing. pressed by Helwani for what he meant, Khan discussed a swath of WWE releases and said that with most of them, oh my goodness, he wasn't sure if those people would have necessarily been released if the new regime was in place given their star power. Given that, both companies would have a similar profile in who they're looking to sign. In talking about how they evaluate free agents, Khan talked about the company's group of coaches and executives that come together right now. He then threw in a line about how AEW Dark was, quote, at one point the premier tryout system in America. Plenty of people will tell you WWE is recruiting off AEW Dark during the pandemic. If anyone tells you that's not true, okay, you're full of shit. Okay. During another part of the interview, Tony Khan said he has never met with WWE co-CEO Nick Khan. Later, when explaining his promo toward Nick during the reported WWE talks with NJPW in May 2021, Tony mentioned he had talked to Nick about those talks and Helwani pressed him on his answer. He declined to answer anything about their conversations or even if they were recent, clarifying they had never met in person but did talk on the phone in a bit of semantics. He also said he had spoken to Paul Levesque and Stephanie McMahon prior to AEW being founded and thought they were friends at one point. They were really nice to me once upon a time as a football owner, he said. Khan talked around and declined to answer direct questions about whether Rampage would eventually become a 2-hour live show. MJF talking about his contract during promos, anything surrounding the all-out post-press conference fight involving CM Punk, Omega, and the Bucks, whether he tried to keep Cody Rhodes in AEW, and his thoughts on Rhodes going to WWE. And then we got a few quick hit notes. He declined to say whether Saraya will indeed wrestle in AEW and or what her role will be. He declined to comment on any negotiations he may or may not have had with Bray Wyatt. When asked about the mood in the locker room, Khan said AEW is, quote, in a really great place as a roster and a company. Okay. He joked that he isn't Bill Watts and doesn't enforce things that way. His original idea and business plan was to run on Tuesdays starting October 2019. If Dynamite couldn't be on Tuesday or Wednesdays, he wasn't going to do it. Huh. Okay. When asked if he watches WWE, he said, I watch a lot of wrestling from different places. All wrestling is competition. He said he sees AEW as a challenger brand based on a book he received from Warner Brothers management when he first started AEW. He equated AEW to Pepsi or Burger King, where the goal is not necessarily to be the industry leader, but also to not be a niche. Similar to those brands, that's why he isn't afraid to mention WWE in interviews. He said that Warner Brothers Discovery was floored by the buys for Ring of Honor's Death Before Dishonor, saying it tripled projections. He also revealed that during the AOL chat era of the internet, he was chat friends with Brian Pillman Sr., Dallas Page, and Lou Thesz himself. Wow, amazing. Now listen, okay. So, talking about how they evaluate free agent companies group, recruiting off the pandemic, Khan discussed a swath of releases and said that with most of them, he wasn't sure if those people would have necessarily been released if the new regime was in place. That's fair to say. When asked about the mood in the locker room, Khan said AEW is in a really great place. It's, okay, here's what I'm taking away from all of it. Here's what I'm wrapping up from all of this. It's very cookie cutter. He's trying to say a lot without saying too much. He's trying to give you information, but not giving you too much that's gonna, like, get him in trouble, I guess? I don't really know, So, on one hand, sure, he's gotta say this stuff. He's gotta say it like that. But on the other hand, you can tell that, like, I don't know, man. Listen to me. I don't believe that thing that he was saying, oh, the locker room's fine. I don't believe that. I believe that there is tension. A very, very, very loose term of tension. You've got wrestlers who want to leave, wrestlers who are chomping at the bit, and that's about it, really. I feel like there's this concoction, this big vat of wrestlers and their emotions and their thoughts, and it's swimming around, and some wrestlers, as you can see, because I honestly didn't even take Andrade to be this kind of character, but he is a completely different man compared to many people. So I can't sit here and go, oh, he wouldn't do that, or oh, he wouldn't say that. But this is, I feel like, a good example of there's a lot of different people in the locker room, and there's a lot of different people who feel certain ways, and it's just a big amuse-bouche, a charcuterie board of emotions and what have you, and sometimes they conflict and they clash, and it's just a big booth of things going on. I don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah, I feel like you can understand where I'm coming from. And man, you gotta feel for Tony Khan in the sense of, like, look, all right, I'm doing what I can to get it under control, but at the same time, it could be a lot worse, and for the most part, everybody's all right with where they are, And he made a good point of, like, if everybody was still there, right? If you had, like, Keith Lee and Adam Cole and Red Dragon and, you know, blah, blah, blah. If you had them still there, more than likely they would have been put on TV by now, or they would, some type of storyline would be in the works. But that's not the case. And I feel as though that if you're Tony Khan, you should be using that to your advantage of like, hey, they weren't being utilized properly, so let me do that over here. But you could argue that that's what he's doing right now, and I don't know, man. I watched a bit of it. I didn't watch all of AEW. I watched a bit of AEW, and then I started, oh man, I did the thing where I started backing up on my whole thoughts about AEW not having good characters and stuff like that. I need to stop doing that. I need to be steadfast in my convictions. That's not what, okay, no. A wrestling journalist is allowed to make a comment of any kind, and if it turns out that he's wrong, then he's allowed to be like, all right, I was wrong and I apologize. But I think if I have an opinion, I should not back down on that opinion, all right? AEW needs more characters, they need more defined storylines, and they need more interesting things going on. I'm not saying the WWE is fucking blowing it out of the water, but WWE has a lot more going on than AEW does, at least in my eyes. And if I'm wrong, then give me some examples, alright? Jeez, I'm just gonna keep talking if you don't tell me that I'm wrong. Finally, we're gonna be talking about Seth Rollins and how he texted Daniel Cormier about the WWE Extreme Rules gig. So, the former UFC heavyweight champion recently sat down with ESPN.com's Mark Raimondi, I hope I'm reading that right, for a new interview. DC talked about his scheduled WWE appearance. He also revealed who pitched the idea to him about working as a guest referee, as well as Dana White's reaction when DC talked to him about the idea. So it wasn't really from the people in charge. It was Seth Rollins. He texted me, goes, real life fighting in the fight. Yeah, real life fighting, because there's a hyphen in life and fighting, so it sounds like real life fighting in the fight pit, and we may be in the market for a special guest referee. Would you have any interest in it? So I said, yeah, I'd be interested in doing it. I think that's fun. I think what you guys have done has been a pleasure to watch. I think it's going to be intense. I think I can add to the story, because the reality is all you're trying to do is add to the story, right? These guys that are professionals, they're going to make magic as they have done on so many occasions. So hopefully I can add a little bit to what they're doing in there. I said I'd be interested and put them in contact with my agent, and then it just so happens that his wife and I share the same agent. Oh, what is this? A crossover episode? So it worked. I called Dana right away. He was like, dude, you in the WWE? How can I say no? He was like, I would never say no to you in the WWE. I know how much you enjoyed it. I know how much you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. So yeah, they were all for it, man. UFC is all excited. I mean, honestly, and gave me permission to say UFC, you know? So I know that we don't say different organizations. I will say UFC every time I'm out there. So this is great. I really like this because Triple H didn't have to do. I feel, okay, if you told me that Triple H told Seth to tell Daniel, to tell Dana, to tell UFC, to tell Seth, to go into the fight pit as a guest referee, I'd be like, all right, sure, that makes sense. But if you told me that Seth told Daniel to tell UFC, to tell Dana, to tell Seth, to tell UFC, to go into the fight pit, then I'd be like, great, that's fantastic. I like the idea that the wrestlers have so much freedom now and so much, like, creative freedom over what they want to do and how they want to portray their characters and their matches and stuff and how they want to produce them. I love this. I think this is great. I think that this spells, I don't know why I said this spells. This is great for the future of wrestling as a whole, because it means that wrestlers can reach out to other people and you know, they can, you know, express themselves creatively within the matches or with their characters and what have you. So hearing stuff like this is very promising for the future of not even WWE, genuinely wrestling as a whole, genuinely, because it just means that there's a slew of different things that wrestlers and celebrities and, you know, that sort of stuff. There's a slew of different things that they can do in and out of the ring to make not so much wrestling back in the main, because I don't think that's the point. I don't think they're, especially with this, I don't think they're trying to get wrestling back in the mainstream. I feel like they could do that with like fucking a myriad of different things. I just think that this, again, is another like a little, I don't know how to describe it, but it's another thing, right, for wrestling to do, to be like, hey, look how far we've come. Now we can do stuff like this, even though they've done it before. So it's not like it's the first time. I'm just saying, you know, the fact that they can like do stuff like this is just a really good, like, I don't know, it's just good, you know, it's just good that stuff like this is happening for wrestling, and I'm just very excited to see it. What did we talk about? Sammy Guevara and Andrade got into an altercation. The reports say that Andrade is the one who started the altercation, but if you ask me, Sammy's the one who started it way in the beginning, alright? So this is just as much Sammy's fault as it is Andrade's. You cannot point the finger at one person and not the other. It is both of their faults. They both could have not done this, and they both decided to go ahead and do something like this, and Andrade just happened to be the one to take it an extra step for no necessary reason. But they're both in the wrong for this, alright? Bandito signed a full-time AEW contract. Great. Nothing really bad to say. Just, I mean, if you're going to put him on TV, put him on TV. And if you're not, you're not. Hopefully he still gets to wrestle. Tony Khan made a bunch of different comments when he was having the interview with Ariel Helwani. A lot of them were very safe. They were very safe responses. He didn't allude to a whole lot. He also didn't talk about the legality and all that sort of stuff with Kenny and the Young Bucks, because again, it's not really his situation anymore. Now they're legally handling it, and apparently it's still ongoing. So at this point, fucking Cole Phelps is in there. Hey, ding ding, you're taking the fucking bottle looking at it. Jeez Louise, how much more do you need to look at? And finally, Seth Rollins was the one who texted Daniel Cormier about being the guest ref. Great! This is good. More of this. Maybe not in this type of caliber, but more stuff where wrestlers are reaching out and being more creative and having more creative input on their matches. I love seeing stuff like that. Folks, that's going to do it for this episode of The Turnbuckle. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Hopefully everybody has a wonderful tonight and a wonderful tomorrow. And as always, big hugs. Big hugs all around.